Battleships have played a significant part in aiding Navy forces around the world in various war situations. Battleships are massive ships equipped with a wide array of weapons and also take part in maritime warfare. These ships are also used by military forces around the world to show their might and assert their dominance on the waters. These vessels are not just quick and versatile, but they come equipped with significant firepower. The more a country has, the stronger its dominance gets in the vast ocean areas of the world. In today's video, we'll take a look at the start and end of the legendary battleship YAMATO. In the spring of 1945, it was clear that Japan was on the verge of getting defeated in World War II, as they had lost every one of their naval and air force troops, while the US troops were rapidly landing on the Japanese islands. On the 6th of April, the legendary Japanese battleship YAMATO sailed off for her last battle. This massive battleship was the last slight bit of hope that the Japanese possessed. The ship was also the largest and the most powerful battleship of that time. The history of the legendary YAMATO began 10 years before and carried out its final mission. In October of 1935, the first draft of the infamous naval giant was put together by Japanese engineers. The Japanese had an advantage in their shipbuilding over the Americans, whose ships were limited to a size that could travel through the Panama Canal. However, this limitation was not for the Japanese, and nothing stopped them from building ships of large size and displacement and loading them with weapons as heavy as possible. So Japanese designers and naval experts set out to make battleships that are powerful enough to outmatch all of the existing counterparts controlled by other countries and any other ships that are built in the near future. The production facilities that helped in the development of the YAMATO were the Kursk Naval Arsenal. The battleship was built on its dockyard. The keel of the ship was laid in 1937, and the ship was fully completed in 1941. Back then, YAMATO was the heaviest battleship in the entirety of the world. The total construction expense of the YAMATO was estimated to be around 130 million yen back then. As of today's prices, that would be over 1 trillion yen or close to $8 billion. The initial plan of the Japanese was to build a total of 4 YAMATO-class ships. However, the Pacific War had just begun, and after completing Musashi, the second ship of the class, Japan stopped the building process of the third ship, Shinano, and the planned fourth one was never started. Eventually, Shinano, the third ship in the class, was transformed into an aircraft carrier. The naming of the battleship Yamato has an interesting backstory. Yamato is the ancient name for Japan and means great harmony. Strict safety measures and secrecy were maintained throughout her construction, and the dockyard was surrounded by a high fence of mats. The crew and engineers swore a solemn oath of not disclosing about the ship, and the workers that were going in and out of the premises would be matched with their photos. The Japanese shipbuilders had something big to hide. Yamato came with a total displacement of 72,808 tons and measured at about 863 feet, with a beam of 128 feet and a draft of 35 feet. The ship was heavily armed with 3 18-inch turrets, each having 3 40 SK Mod 94 guns. Secondarily, the ship also had 2 6-inch caliber turrets, each having 6-inch caliber Type 3 guns. The battleship also came with anti-aircraft artillery, including 12 5-inch coaxial Type 89 guns. It also carried multiple reconnaissance and spotting aircraft as well. The main belt armor of the ship measures about 11 inches in some places to 16 inches in others, and its main turrets vary in size from as little as 7 inches to as big as 36 inches, and its conning towers stand at about 10 to 20 feet tall. The ship's powered by 4 Campon turbines and 12 Campon RO boilers that produce an overall shaft horsepower. The ship can travel up to speeds of 27 knots. Its operational range at 16 knots is approximately 7,200 nautical miles. The most recognizable and key feature of the Yamato is their main turrets. Each of these has 3 460mm guns. These guns are capable of firing shells that weigh almost 1.5 tons with an incredible muzzle speed of 790 meters per second. A single gun turret can contain over 150 men and weigh over 3,000 tons, including its barbette. The main turrets of the Yamato ship were guided by a fire control system that consisted of a director who provided the firing parameters, electromechanical calculations, and rangefinders. The system at the time was considered state-of-the-art. The lack of fire control radar for identifying and engaging surface targets was compensated for by the top-of-the-line grouping of salvos. This enabled the Japanese to be on par with the firing capabilities of the world's most powerful navies. The secondary battery of the ships consisted of 2 turrets, each having 3 6-inch guns. These guns come equipped with excellent characteristics and could penetrate the armor of a normal cruiser with ease. However, the only problem faced with these guns was that their rate of fire was comparatively low compared to the main turrets. The second battleship of the Yamato class was named Musashi. It was named after the historical province of Musashi, which is now known as the Tokyo metropolitan area. The construction of the ship began on March 29, 1938, and she was commissioned for service on the 5th of August, 1942. With a length of 862 feet overall, the battleship had a waterline beam of 36.9 meters, along with a draught of 10.86 meters at deep load. The ship was capable of displacing 65,000 tons at a standard load and 71,659 tons at deep load. In 1942, 2,500 officers were operating the ship. However, they were increased to about 2,800 in 1944. The Giant came with 4 sets of Campon-geared steam turbines, each of which drove a propeller shaft. The turbines were specially designed to produce a total of 150,000 shaft horsepower, using steam provided by 12 Campon water tube boilers. The ship was capable of traveling up to speeds of 27.5 knots. The main battery on the Musashi came equipped with 9 .45 caliber 460mm Type 94 guns mounted in 3 triple-gun turrets. Each of them was numbered from front to rear. The guns came with a rate of fire of 1.5 to 2 rounds per minute. Additionally, the ship's secondary battery contained 12 .60 caliber 155mm third-year type guns, which were mounted in 4 triple turrets. The Musashi was also fitted with 2 catapult systems on her quarterdeck and could accommodate up to 7 float planes in her hangar. The ship used a 6-ton stern-mounted crane for recovery purposes and operated Mitsubishi F-1M biplanes and Aichi E-13A1 monoplanes. This might not sound impressive by modern-day terms, especially when compared to the supercarriers that we've already talked about, but for its time and place, it was excessively aggressive and demoralizingly destructive. When the Yamato was commissioned, it had a total of 6 coaxial anti-aircraft guns for long-range battle with additional short-range anti-aircraft artillery, including 8 triple-barrel cannons. However, there was another issue. The 5-inch guns and the .98-inch guns had very different ranges of fire. So when an enemy aircraft would fly at a further distance, neither of the guns was capable of effectively intercepting and neutralizing the adversaries. Furthermore, the 5-inch guns also had a slow traveling speed. They also failed to fire at the declared rate of 14 rounds per minute. However, the Yamato had the heaviest armor in shipbuilding history, as its U.S. counterpart battleship, Iowa, had an armor that was approximately 100 millimeters thinner. The armor belt of the Japanese giant ship formed a stronghold that covered almost over half of her waterline length. The most protected part of the ship was the conning tower, and the weapon systems of the ships had become massive. It was like the Japanese had built a super warship that was like 10 or 15 others bolted together. However, as versatile as the ship was, it didn't pay off, because one Yamato-class battleship could still be destroyed with ease if it came against 2 or 3 or even 10 U.S. battleships. The Yamato was commissioned in late 1941 and her first mission that she carried out was the Battle of Midway, where she served as the flagship of the Japanese combined fleet. During this battle, which lasted from the 4th of June until the 6th in 1942, Yamato didn't fire a single shot and was utilized only as a headquarters ship. The Japanese military command had the intention to save their two best battleships for an upcoming major battle against the fleet of the United States Army. Naturally, the Japanese seamen were starting to feel a bit disappointed with the ship they called their flagship, even to the extent that they made up a saying that the world's three most useless things were the Egyptian pyramids, China's Great Wall, and the battleship Yamato. However, in 1944, the Japanese naval giants fought their first real battle. Along with their sister ship Musashi, Yamato attacked the United States landing craft near the island of Leyte. In that battle, Yamato was only slightly damaged, showcased her capabilities, and recovered its status of being an unsinkable giant. But the situation in the Pacific had changed by that time. When making new weapon systems, designers in the military usually try to enhance their specifications as much as possible. These specifications include bigger caliber, thicker armor, higher fire rate. You get the idea. Then they move on to developing and improving a separate weapon type and push its limits even further. One of the biggest changes in maritime warfare technology was carrier-borne aviation and later on missile systems. Yamato at the time was still considered the peak of the construction of battleship design. In 1945, World War II arrived at Japan's home islands. The command of the Japanese combined fleet decided that Yamato, with the help of a light cruiser and 8 destroyers, would be responsible for defending the island of Okinawa and holding the U.S. troops from getting any further into the land, or fighting to the end and finishing her journey with honor. Operating in this order, on April 6, 1945, the legendary Yamato battleship sailed off to fight her last battle. The United States Army sent its Task Force 58 to intercept and eliminate the flagship of the Japanese combined fleet. The Americans would not miss their chance to destroy the linchpin of Japan's naval power and supremacy in the region. At 10 a.m., the United States squadron took off from 5 heavy and 4 light aircraft carriers that were located about 300 miles away from the Yamato. It was estimated that a total of 227 aircraft had taken part in destroying the Japanese force. When the battle began, 4 aerial bombs had been dropped on the Yamato, destroying a 5-inch gun and several automated cannons. 20 minutes later, 2 more bombs had hit the battleship, and a torpedo had hit her at her port side. Responding to the attack, the Yamato started to fire her anti-aircraft cannons. Then the U.S. ships launched an attack that wounded the Yamato significantly, leaving it barely capable of combat. The Americans launched 4 torpedoes towards the Yamato, from which 3 were to the port side of the ship and 1 to the starboard. As a result, the ship's damage control center was destroyed. This caused Yamato to stop moving, and she started listing to the port more and more every minute, eventually capsizing, and a huge explosion erupted. This made the Japanese fleet lose all hope, and their pride was wounded as their biggest ship, which they considered as the symbol of their might, had drowned, sealing the fate of nearly 3,000 members, including the commanders of the Japanese force, as well as those serving on the ship. Today, Yamato remains a symbol of the nation's bravery that it fell in battle like a true warrior. The city where the Yamato was built and developed has opened up a museum whose centerpiece is a 26-meter-long model of the Yamato. The museum is named the Kure Municipal Museum of Naval History and Science and was built 10 years ago to preserve the rich naval tradition of the city itself. However, in recent times, the museum's name was changed to the Yamato Museum. The exhibit now reflects the history of naval affairs as well as technologies. The museum has become quite a sensation as fans of battleships all over the world come here and check them out. However, it's important to remember that it was originally dedicated to all forms of shipbuilding and wasn't specifically for the design and construction of the Yamato. Backtracking to the battle, the main reason that the explosion that destroyed Yamato was so massive was because of her main battery magazines being detonated. However, there were plenty of other factors that could be argued about the violent explosion. The interesting part is that the answer that we're looking for is probably hidden at the bottom of the ocean. As of late, researchers have been unable to lift whatever was left of the giant ship. It's not false to say that the Yamato had a fair share of drawbacks, as, like her sister ship Musashi, she had sunk as a result of multiple airstrikes against them. However, this did clear the fact that the reason for both of the ships to sink was because of their fundamental lack of ability to protect themselves from fierce airborne attacks. To date, the Yamato remains the largest and the most powerful battleship in human history, embodying might and bravery. Her legacy will never be forgotten, as she managed to glorify her name even as she was defeated while representing a pinnacle in large battleship design, one that'll probably never be surpassed easily. And this brings us to the end of our video for today. Make sure you show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing to our channel, and turn that bell notification on. This way you'll always be the first to be notified whenever new content is dropped. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you in our next video.